There's a part of you you've never met. It watches, it waits, it remembers. It knows your fears, your patterns, your truth. Carl Jung called it the shadow, and it's been trying to reach you.
You were born into a world you never chose. A name was given to you, a role assigned, a script written. Long before you could speak, they taught you how to be smart, kind, successful. But no one ever told you the one thing that matters most, who you truly are. Oh, you adapted. You performed. You wore the mask so well, you forgot you were wearing one. You became what the world applauded and lost touch with the voice that whispered beneath the noise. Until one day, a silence grows louder inside you. A strange emptiness you can't explain. A subtle ache, like a sealed letter inside your soul that you've never dared to open. You begin to dream of strange and familiar places. You react in ways you don't understand. You repeat the same patterns, relive the same relationships, feel like your life is looping, and you no longer recognize the person living it is not a glitch, is a signal. A summons from within your unconscious is calling. It's telling you, you are not really living, you are just running the program. But from this moment on, you are invited onto a path as old as humanity itself, and yet entirely your own. A journey not outward, but inward, to the self you were forced to forget, to the self that has always been waiting for your return. You will face your mask, walk through your shadow, see the face of your soul in others, learn the secret language of your dreams, and reclaim the myth of your life. This is not self-improvement, this is soul awakening. This is Carl Jung's great message. And the moment you finally begin to become yourself. Have you ever felt a quiet, gnawing emptiness, even when everything in your life seems fine on the surface? A sense that you're just going through the motions, disconnected from some deeper sense of purpose? You're not alone. This feeling is a silent epidemic in our modern world, and its roots go much deeper than you might think. We often believe the problem is our own weakness, but perhaps it's the opposite. We are not too fragile. We just haven't admitted for too long that we are sinking. We have more information, more entertainment, and more opportunities than any generation in history. But for so many of us, all this abundance hasn't led to more fulfillment. Instead, we're seeing a rise in what is truly a crisis of meaning. An American Psychiatric Association poll from 2024 found that 43% of adults felt more anxious than they did the year before, and that number has been climbing for years. And this isn't just stress over bills or the news, though those are real. It's a more profound existential unease. We are living in a strange paradox. Our world is overflowing with distractions, but our souls feel increasingly empty. So what is the source of this feeling, and why does anxiety seem to be the default state for so many? To figure this out, we need to look past today's psychology and into the deep structures of the human psyche, with one of the 20th century's most profound thinkers as our guide, Carl Gustav Jung. The feeling is subtle at first, like a shadow at the edge of your vision. You might notice it on a Sunday evening, a sense of dread that isn't just about the coming work week, but about time itself relentlessly slipping away. Or it hits you in a quiet moment when the noise stops and you're left with the blunt realization that nothing truly excites you anymore. You scroll through endless feeds of curated perfection, feeling like a digital ghost at a feast of other people's lives, and a sense of alienation grows, a disconnection not just from others, but from your own life. This is the landscape of modern emptiness. We live under the false assumption that we are actively trying to build a happier life. We chase success, validation, and comfort, thinking they'll add up to a meaningful existence. But the underlying truth is far more unsettling. You think you're trying to get better, but you're actually just using busyness to escape existential nothingness. When we reach the top of the mountain we were told to climb, the view is barren. The promised land of contentment turns out to be a mirage, and the emptiness we were trying to escape has only grown larger in the shadow of our hollow achievements. This isn't a personal failure, it's a cultural condition. We're born into a world that has, in many ways, forgotten what it means to be truly human. We've traded depth for breadth, wisdom for information, and an inner connection for external validation. Our lives are lived on the surface, caught in a current of notifications and fleeting pleasures. We're encouraged to build a persona, a carefully crafted mask for the world, while our true self remains undeveloped and unknown. But this relentless focus on the external comes at a cost. We've become strangers to our own inner world, that vast, mysterious landscape where real meaning is forged. The anxiety that partners this emptiness is the soul's version of a pain signal. It's a desperate cry from the parts of ourselves we've neglected. Disconnected from our own depths, we are unmoored, like a ship without an anchor. We feel anxious because, on an instinctual level, we know something is profoundly wrong. We are living against our own nature, like creatures of the deep ocean, forced into the shallow tides, gasping for something we can no longer find. The anxiety is a symptom of a starving soul. To understand this disconnection, we have to journey back to a key moment in our collective history. In the late 19th century, the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche made a startling proclamation: God is dead. This wasn't a cry of triumph, but a diagnosis of a deep cultural crisis. Nietzsche saw that the central organizing principle of Western civilization, a belief in divine, transcendent order, was crumbling. This created a profound philosophical problem, exposing the fragile nature of meaning itself. For millennia, religion and its myths had given humanity a map of reality. As the mythologist Joseph Campbell explained, these stories provided a framework that gave meaning to suffering, context to joy, and structure to our lives. Think of ancient rituals, coming-of-age ceremonies, weddings, funerals. These were psychodramas that connected a person's individual life to a larger sacred story, providing incredible psychological stability. Here lies another false assumption versus underlying truth critique. The false assumption of the Enlightenment was that by replacing myth with pure reason, humanity would be freed. The underlying truth that Jung and Nietzsche saw was that in killing God, we didn't just eliminate a superstition, we destroyed the psychological container for our deepest questions. We were left in a spiritual vacuum. The world was disenchanted, no longer a living thing filled with spirit, but a giant machine running on impersonal laws. The gods were kicked out of the heavens, the spirits out of the forests, and the sacred out of the human heart. Working as a psychiatrist in the early 20th century, Carl Jung saw the psychological fallout firsthand. His patients weren't just dealing with personal issues. They were suffering from a distinctly modern problem, a crisis of meaninglessness. They were successful people who had everything society told them they should want, yet they felt consumed by futility. They had lost their connection to the vital, life-giving myths that had sustained their ancestors. Jung realized that humanity cannot live without a guiding narrative. He wrote, "Modern man is a victim of the very achievements of his own intellect. In conquering the outer world, he has lost his own soul. We threw away the old map, but never made a new one. We were adrift on a vast, uncharted ocean with no stars to guide us. The ancient symbols that once connected us to the deep world of the unconscious lost their power. The anxiety and emptiness so common today are the direct symptoms of this psychic starvation." To understand Jung's solution, we must grasp his revolutionary model of the mind. For Jung, our conscious ego, the I we identify with, is just a tiny island in the vast ocean of the unconscious. He split this ocean into two layers. The first is the personal unconscious, which holds our forgotten memories and repressed feelings. But beneath this lies something far deeper, the collective unconscious. This was Jung's most profound discovery. It is a psychic inheritance, a shared reservoir of primordial images that connects all of humanity across time. It is the psychic blueprint of our species. Within this collective unconscious are the archetypes. Archetypes are universal patterns that structure our experience. The hero, the mother, the wise old man, the trickster. They are not learned, they are built-in potentials that get activated by our life experiences. We recognize them instantly in myths, fairy tales, and religions because they are part of our shared psychic DNA. Myths, then, are the stories the collective unconscious tells. When a culture is healthy, its myths build a bridge between the conscious mind and the archetypal world. This connection is vital. It nourishes the soul and gives life a sense of sacred purpose. This is the core of Jung's diagnosis. By systematically tearing down our mythologies, we've severed this vital connection. The archetypes haven't gone away, but instead of engaging with them consciously through myth and ritual, they now fester in the dark, controlling us from behind. A person with no conscious connection to the hero archetype might be driven by a compulsive need for power, an unconscious attempt to live out that pattern. A society with no place for the shadow, the dark side of our nature, will inevitably project it onto an enemy, leading to war and persecution. For Jung, modern anxiety and emptiness are not disorders to be medicated. They are messages from the unconscious, telling us our conscious life is dangerously out of balance. The emptiness is a soul starved of archetypal energy. The anxiety is the tension of these powerful unacknowledged forces. As Jung memorably put it, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Our modern fate, a life of quiet desperation, is the result of our failure to listen to the call of the unconscious. If the diagnosis is disconnection, the cure is reconnection. Jung called this journey the process of individuation. It's the lifelong project of becoming who you truly are, a unique, whole, and individual. By integrating the conscious and unconscious parts of your personality. This is the answer to the modern crisis of meaninglessness. The journey begins with confronting the shadow. The shadow is the archetype of everything we have repressed and disowned, our dark side. It's made up of the impulses, like greed, envy, and rage, that don't fit with the mask we show the world. An unacknowledged shadow has a powerful, destructive influence, often through projection. We don't see the darkness in ourselves, so we project it onto others. The things we hate most in other people are often the parts of our own shadow we refuse to see. Shadow work is the process of taking back those projections and recognizing the darkness as part of ourselves. This doesn't mean acting on dark impulses, but acknowledging them with honesty. This is humbling, but it's also liberating. It makes us more whole, more grounded, and less likely to be controlled by our unconscious. Next, we must learn to listen to the language of the unconscious. For Jung, the most important source was dreams. He saw them not as random noise, but as direct messages from our deeper self, speaking in a language of symbols. Paying attention to our dreams opens a dialogue with the soul. Another of Jung's techniques is active imagination, a type of meditation where you consciously enter your inner world and interact with the figures of the unconscious, allowing a bridge to form between your conscious ego and the psyche. Finally, individuation requires us to create a personal myth. While collective myths may have lost their power, the need for a guiding story remains. We must find the narrative that gives our own life meaning, seeing it not as random events, but as a journey with a unique purpose. It involves figuring out which archetypal patterns, the hero's journey, the healer, the seeker, are at play in our own story. This personal myth becomes our compass, providing the antidote to the emptiness and anxiety of a world that has forgotten its stories. It is the work of a lifetime, but it is the work that ultimately makes life worth living. The journey we've taken through the landscape of modern anxiety, guided by Carl Jung, leads to a powerful and hopeful conclusion. The feelings of emptiness and disconnection are not signs that we are broken. They are a summons. They are a sacred call from the deepest parts of ourselves, an invitation to embark on the most important journey of all, the journey back to the soul. We've seen how losing our collective myths left a void that no amount of technology or pleasure can fill. We've seen how Jung diagnosed this as a dangerous separation from the archetypal world, the very source of meaning, and we've discovered his path forward, the process of individuation, a courageous journey inward to confront our shadow, listen to our dreams, and forge a new personal myth. This isn't an easy path. It demands honesty, courage, and a willingness to face the parts of ourselves we would rather ignore. But it is a path that leads to a life of genuine substance and a quiet, grounded sense of purpose that doesn't rely on anyone else's approval. It's the difference between simply existing and truly living. The modern world may have lost its map, but this gives us an incredible opportunity. We are no longer bound by the rigid rules of the past. Each of us has the chance to become our own explorer, to chart our own course into the inner world and bring back the treasure of a life lived with authenticity. The emptiness isn't a void to be feared, but a space waiting to be filled. The anxiety isn't a sickness to be silenced, but the energy of a life that is waiting to be lived. If this exploration resonated with you, consider liking this video and subscribing for more journeys into the depths of the human experience. We would love to hear from you in the comments. What are the modern myths you live by? What does this journey of self-discovery mean to you? Your story is a vital part of this collective conversation. Thank you for watching. Think about that one person, the one who makes your skin crawl, that coworker, that family member, maybe even some public figure who just gets under your skin in a way you can't quite explain. Their arrogance, their laziness, their incompetence, it just lights a fire in you. Now, what if I told you that intense, gut-level emotional reaction has almost nothing to do with them? What if they are just a perfect, unwilling mirror, reflecting a secret part of yourself you refuse to look at? Today, we're exposing a powerful psychological trick your mind plays on you, one that quietly sabotages your relationships, your peace, and your personal growth. We're going to explore the concept of psychological projection, and I'll give you the tools to stop it from ruining your connections. This isn't just about feeling better, it's about becoming whole. Let's be honest, there's a certain satisfaction in blame, right? It feels righteous. When someone cuts you off in traffic, they aren't just having a bad day, they're a terrible, selfish driver, a menace to society. When your partner forgets to take out the trash, it's not a simple mistake. It's a sign they don't respect you, that they're careless and inconsiderate. This story is clean, it's simple, and in this story, you are the victim, the righteous one, and they are the clear villain. Blaming someone gives you a momentary hit of relief. It protects your ego from feeling shame or inadequacy. For a fleeting moment, you feel superior, justified, and in control. But it's a trap, a deeply insidious one. Have you ever noticed that you keep meeting the same kind of person, the same micromanaging boss, the same friend who always seems to let you down, the same romantic partner who's emotionally unavailable? You end one relationship or leave one job vowing never again, vowing only to find yourself months or years later in a startlingly similar situation with a brand new person. You blame them, you feel righteous in your anger, but the pattern never, ever stops. You feel stuck in a loop, like you're the unwilling punchline to a cosmic joke. This isn't fate or bad luck. This is often the result of a powerful, unconscious defense mechanism running your life from the shadows. This cycle of blame is costing you more than you realize. It's costing you peace of mind, turning you into someone who is easily agitated and perpetually offended. It's sabotaging your connections, creating rifts and resentment in relationships that could otherwise be sources of joy. And most tragically, it's robbing you of your power. As long as someone else is the problem, you are powerless. You're just waiting for the entire world to change its behavior so you can finally feel at peace. And that is a game you will never win. The frustration you feel is real. The hurt is valid. But the source of that recurring frustration might not be where you think it is. The pattern isn't out there, it's in you. The good news is, once you understand how it works, you gain the power to break it for good. To understand why we get trapped in this cycle, we have to understand the nature of the mind. Your mind's number one job isn't to make you happy, it's to keep you safe. And one of its oldest tools for safety is the defense mechanism. Think of defense mechanisms as your mind's secret service team. Their job is to protect your ego from information it finds too threatening or painful to handle. Feelings like deep insecurity, shame, guilt, or fear. When these feelings bubble up, the Secret Service springs into action to neutralize the threat. And what's the quickest way to get rid of an uncomfortable feeling? Give it to someone else. This is the essence of psychological projection. Projection is the unconscious act of taking your own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, or traits and assigning them to another person. It's like an emotional hot potato. Instead of dealing with the burning shame of our own dishonesty, we become intensely focused on how dishonest everyone else is. Instead of confronting our own fear of inadequacy, we become hypercritical of the incompetence of our colleagues. It's a clever trick, By making the bad feeling external, our ego gets to keep its preferred self-image as a good, competent, and honest person. The internal conflict is reduced and the anxiety momentarily vanishes. For instance, a person who struggles with repressed anger might constantly see others around them as hostile and aggressive. This lets them avoid the terrifying prospect of looking at the rage simmering within themselves. But this defense comes at a monumental cost. While it provides short-term relief, it creates long-term suffering. Every time we project, we are actively avoiding self-awarenesses. We are choosing a comfortable lie over a challenging truth. And because we're not addressing the root cause, the feeling inside us, that feeling doesn't go away. It just gets stronger, demanding to be seen, so we have to project it more forcefully and more often. This is a huge reason why the patterns repeat. You leave a job because you can't stand your critical boss, only to find your new boss is just as critical. You break up with a needy partner only to attract someone else who feels just as demanding. Your mind, desperate for you to deal with your own disowned feelings, will keep recreating the same scenario, casting new actors in the same roles, until you finally stop looking at the screen and turn to face the project. While other factors can contribute to these loops, projection is a powerful engine driving them. The blame game is a prison that feels like a fortress. It feels safe and justified, but it locks you into a cycle of stagnation. It prevents you from forming real connections because you're not reacting to the person in front of you. You're reacting to a ghost from your own psyche. Breaking free begins with the most courageous act possible, turning the finger of blame back towards yourself, not with judgment, but with curiosity. This is where everything starts to click. This is where we shift from the what and the why to the how it all works. And for that, we need to bring in one of the most profound figures in psychology, Carl Jung, and his ideas about the shadow self. Imagine you're in a dark room with a movie projector. That projector is your unconscious mind. The film reel contains all the thoughts, feelings, and traits you've ever repressed. And the blank wall in front of you is the outside world, specifically the people you meet. Projection is when your mind takes a piece of that film, a trait you find unacceptable in yourself, and plays it onto the wall, superimposing it onto someone else. You're not seeing that person for who they are, you are seeing your own disowned story played out on their face. The arrogance you see in them mirrors the arrogance you refuse to face in yourself. Carl Jung had a name for this collection of repressed film reels, the shadow self. The shadow is basically the dark side of our personality. It's where we store everything we've denied about ourselves because we were taught it was wrong, shameful, or unacceptable. This includes emotions like rage, greed, envy, and selfishness. But, and this is so important, the shadow isn't just a bag of bad things. It also contains our disowned positive traits. This is called the golden shadow. Maybe you were taught as a child that it was boastful to be confident, so you suppressed your natural assertiveness. Now you find yourself intensely irritated by highly confident people. That confidence is part of your golden shadow. Maybe you were told being creative wasn't a real job, so you buried your artistic side. Now you might feel a strange mix of admiration and envy for artists. That creativity is in your shadow. The shadow is everything unconscious in us waiting to be seen. And since we refuse to look at it inside, our mind has a brilliant strategy. It makes us see it everywhere outside. This brings us to one of Jung's most famous quotes. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Let that sink in. That person who drives you crazy is not your enemy. They are your teacher. They are a messenger sent by your own unconscious, delivering a gift that contains a lost piece of your soul. Your irritation is the doorbell ringing. The intensity of your emotional reaction is a direct measure of how desperately that part of you wants to be brought home. Let's look at some clear examples. The projection of insecurity. A manager is deeply insecure about their own competence. Instead of acknowledging this fear, they project it. They become a relentless micromanager, constantly criticizing their team for being incompetent. Their team's every minor mistake feels like a monumental failure because it triggers the manager's own buried feelings of inadequacy. The projection of disloyalty. A man feels a flicker of attraction to a coworker and feels immense guilt about it. Instead of sitting with this uncomfortable feeling, his mind projects it. He goes home and becomes intensely suspicious of his innocent partner, accusing her of being secretive or cheating. He's not reacting to her behavior, he's reacting to the disowned desire within himself, a projection of judgment. A woman who is incredibly self-critical, holding herself to impossible standards, constantly complains about how judgmental her friends are. She perceives every piece of advice as a harsh critique because she's viewing them through the lens of her own inner critic. The judgment she feels from the outside is a perfect echo of the judgment she inflicts on herself. The golden shadow projection. You have a friend who is effortlessly confident. They speak their mind and take up space. You find yourself both admiring and resenting them. You might call them arrogant. That irritation is a clue. It points directly to the confident, assertive part of yourself that you've suppressed, perhaps because you were told to be quiet and not make waves. Your friend is simply living out a part of your own potential. The world becomes a living feedback system. The people who trigger you are no longer just sources of frustration, they are guideposts on the path back to your whole self. The goal isn't to get rid of the mirror. The goal is to learn how to look into it. If this is starting to resonate, if you're recognizing some of these patterns in your life and feeling that mix of discomfort and excitement that comes with a profound truth, then hit that subscribe button and join our community. We explore these concepts to give you practical tools for real self-awareness. Don't miss out on what's coming next. So how do you know when you're projecting? Since it's an unconscious process, how do you make it conscious? It's like trying to see the back of your own head. You can't do it directly, but you can use reflections. Here are the key reflections. The signs that you're probably projecting. This is the biggest tell. You get a slightly critical email from a coworker and fly into a rage that lasts for hours. Your friend is 10 minutes late and you feel a wave of betrayal that ruins your day. The emotional output is wildly out of proportion to the input. A 10/10 emotional reaction to a 2/10 event is a massive red flag that the reaction isn't just about what's happening now. That extra energy is coming from somewhere else. It's coming from your shadow. When you notice this, get curious. Ask yourself, why is this so activating for me? What older, deeper feeling does this remind me of? As we discussed, this is the universe trying to get your attention. If you consistently find yourself complaining about the same type of person, all my bosses are tyrants, all my partners are distant, all my friends are unreliable, the one constant in all those equations is you. Your unconscious is casting these people in the role of your shadow so you can finally see the play you're putting on. The specific complaints you have are direct clues. If you're always complaining about others being victims, it might be time to look at your own unacknowledged victim mentality. If you're always complaining about others being controlling, it's a powerful invitation to examine your own control issues. When you feel an intense, burning need to be right in a conflict, projection is often in the driver's seat. That feeling of being morally superior is a powerful ego defense. It feels good to be the good guy and paint the other person as the bad guy. If you find yourself gossiping, compulsively pointing out others' flaws, or feeling a smug satisfaction at their failures, you are likely dancing with your shadow. This moral high ground is often a desperate attempt to distance yourself from the very traits you are judging in them. Your body doesn't lie. Even when your mind is busy crafting a story of blame, your body holds the truth. Pay attention to how you feel physically when you're around the person who triggers you. Does your jaw clench? Does your chest tighten? Does your stomach churn? These are somatic markers of your shadow being activated. That person's presence is triggering an unconscious part of you, and your body is going into a threat response. Learn to listen. When you feel that tightening in your chest, instead of launching into a mental rant about them, pause. Breathe into the sensation. Ask your body, what is this feeling? What are you trying to protect me from? This shifts you from reaction to inquiry. Spotting your shadow is a practice. It requires what Jung called considerable moral effort, because it means giving up the satisfying role of the victim. But every time you catch yourself projecting, you reclaim a piece of your power. You move one step closer to seeing the world and the people in it as they truly are. Understanding the theory is one thing. but it's the practice that sets you free. Knowledge alone won't break the cycle. You need practical tools to withdraw your projections and integrate your shadow. Here is a clear, 3-step process you can use every single time you feel triggered. The first step is to move from a vague feeling of irritation to a specific word. When you're feeling that intense charge towards someone, stop and ask yourself, what is the one word that best describes the quality that is bothering me so much right now? Be precise. Don't just say they're a jerk. Is it their arrogance, their laziness, their neediness, their incompetence, their loudness, their weakness? Write that word down. I am irritated by his arrogance, or her neediness is driving me crazy. Naming the trait is like turning on a light in a dark room. It gives the monster a specific shape. This act creates a small but crucial space between you and the reaction, and in that space, the work can begin. This is the most challenging and transformative step. You're going to take the accusation you've aimed at someone else and consciously turn it inward. Use these 3 questions to explore how this trait lives inside you. Take the word you identify. Let's use arrogant. Now, ask yourself with total honesty, where in my life, even just 1% of the time, am I also arrogant? Maybe you're not arrogant in the same way, but look for the echoes. Do you sometimes dismiss others' opinions in your head? Do you act like you know best with your partner? Do you secretly feel superior to certain people? The goal isn't to shame yourself, but to find the shared humanity, to recognize that the seed of this trait exists in you too. Now, reframe the trait. Every negative trait has a positive side in a healthy context. Arrogance, in a healthy form, might be self-confidence. Laziness could be the ability to relax. Neediness could be the ability to be vulnerable and ask for help. Ask yourself, where in my life would it benefit me to be more healthfully arrogant, i.e. rest? Or where could I use a bit more healthy laziness, i.e. rest? This helps you see that what you're rejecting in them is often a power you need to develop in yourself. This is an exercise in radical empathy. Imagine yourself in their shoes, with their upbringing, their insecurities, their life experiences. If you had lived their exact life, moment for moment, is it possible you would have developed this same coping mechanism? The answer is almost always yes. This doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it dissolves your judgment. It lets you see their behavior not as a personal attack, but as their own flawed strategy for navigating the world. Now that you've explored the trait, the final step is to formally reclaim it. We can use a powerful exercise adapted from the work of philosopher Ken Wilber called the 3-2-1 shadow process. Bring the person who triggers you to mind. Describe them and their irritating quality from a detached perspective. Speak it out loud. I am looking at John. He is so arrogant. He acts like he knows everything. Describe it as an it, or a he/she separate from you. Now shift to the second person. Speak directly to the trait itself. John, I can't stand it when you are so arrogant. You make me feel small. Why do you have to dominate every conversation? This creates a dialogue and lets you engage with the projected energy. This is the final, most powerful move. Embody the trait. Speak from its perspective, using I statements. Take a deep breath and say the words, am arrogant, am confident, know my own value. Take up space. Feel what it's like in your body to say this. It might feel uncomfortable or even wrong, but in doing this, you are taking the energy you projected out and consciously bringing it back home. You are telling your unconscious, I see this part of me. It is welcome here. It is mine. You are re-owning a piece of your own power. By practicing this 3-step process, you retrain your mind. Instead of automatically projecting, you learn to pause, inquire, and integrate. Each trigger becomes less of an attack and more of an invitation to become more whole. We started this journey looking at that person who gets under your skin. We've traveled through the psychology of blame, the idea of the projector and the screen, and the profound wisdom of the shadow self. Here's the biggest takeaway. The people who trigger you most are your greatest opportunities for growth. They aren't your enemies, they are your mirrors. Your intense emotional reactions are not a sign of their flaws, but a compass pointing directly to the disowned and unhealed parts of your own psyche. For years, you may have felt like a victim, powerless as you met the same frustrating people over and over. But that can end now. You now have the tools to change the pattern. By identifying the trait, turning the accusation inward, and consciously integrating that energy, you reclaim your power. You stop trying to change the world and start transforming yourself. This is the path to real peace and authentic connection. When you're no longer projecting your inner demons onto others, you're finally free to see them as they are. Arguments soften, resentment dissolves. Relationships that were once battlegrounds can become spaces for genuine intimacy. The work isn't easy. It demands courage and a willingness to be uncomfortable. But the reward is immeasurable. It is the reward of self-acknowledge, wholeness, and freedom. So the next time you feel that familiar spike of irritation or righteous anger, remember this: don't break the mirror, don't curse the reflection, look into it, look deeper. The person you are really trying to heal is yourself. Thank you for joining me on this. If this video opened up something for you, please share your biggest takeaway in the comments below. What mirror are you looking into right now? Sharing our experiences is a powerful way to feel less alone on this path. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more content that empowers you to understand your mind and transform your life. Until next time, be curious. You wake up, you go to work, you talk to friends, family, colleagues, you post online, you make choices about your life, your career, your relationships. But what if, behind every one of these actions, behind every decision you think you're making, there are ancient invisible forces at play? You think you're in control, but what if you're just playing a role? A character in a story that was written long before you were born. You might be living as a character you didn't create, shaped by unconscious forces you don't even know exist. It's a strange feeling, isn't it? The sense that the life you're living isn't quite your own, that you're wearing a mask so perfectly crafted you've forgotten the face it hides. This journey we're about to go on is a map out of that illusion. It's a guide through the essential encounters on the path of what the famous Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung called individuation. The profound process of shedding the masks, confronting your own darkness, and integrating the lost pieces of your soul to become who you truly are. This isn't about self-improvement, it's about self-realization. So if you've ever felt like a stranger in your own life, stick around. This journey is for you. Before we can start any journey of self-discovery, we have to know where we're starting from. And for most of us, that starting point is the persona. The word persona is Latin for the masks worn by actors in ancient Greek theater, which is perfect because that's exactly what it is, the social mask we show the world. It's that polished, curated version of ourselves we put out there to make a good impression, to fit in, and to get by in our social and professional life. Think about it. You probably have more than one. There's the competent, professional you at work, the fun, easygoing you with your friends, the dutiful son or daughter you become with your parents. On social media, we're all masters of the persona, presenting a highlight reel of our lives, carefully edited to look successful, happy, and fulfilled. These masks aren't inherently bad. In fact, they're necessary. A healthy persona helps us function in society. It's a tool for connection that shields our more vulnerable, true self from judgment. The problem starts when we forget we're wearing a mask. The real danger, as Jung warned, is when we become identical to our personas. The professor who can't stop lecturing his family at dinner, the doctor who treats her husband like a patient, the influencer who can't tell the difference between their real feelings and their personal brand. When the mask sticks to the skin, we start to feel suffocated. We lose touch with what we truly feel and need. We become, as Jung put it, all persona, a shallow, brittle version of ourselves, obsessed with what other people think. This is where that deep, nagging feeling of being a fraud comes from. You can have all the external success, the great job, the family, the praise, and still feel empty inside. That emptiness is a signal. It's your soul telling you it needs more than just the role you're playing. It's a call to begin the first real work of individuation, seeing the mask for what it is. The first step is just radical self-honesty. Start consciously observing the different masks you wear. Ask yourself, who am I at work, with my friends, with my family? And the most important question, who am I when I'm completely alone? Notice the little shifts in your words, your tone, your posture. The goal isn't to get rid of the persona. It's a useful tool. The goal is to create some space between you, the real you, and the mask you wear. It's about realizing you're the actor, not the role. This is the moment you remember you have a face underneath the mask, and you begin the sacred work of rediscovering what it looks like. This is where the journey inward really begins, and it leads straight to our first great challenge, the shadow. Once you start to see the persona for what it is, a mask, a role, just a tiny piece of who you are, you can't help but notice what it's been hiding. Behind that carefully built facade lies everything we've decided is unacceptable about ourselves. This is the realm of the shadow. Carl Jung called the shadow the dark side of our personality. It's where we store all the parts of ourselves that we've repressed and denied because they didn't fit in with the good person we're trying to be. It's full of the impulses, weaknesses, and desires that society, our families, and even our own conscious minds have labeled as bad. Anger, selfishness, envy, irrationality, greed, vulnerability. But the shadow isn't just a dumpster for negative traits. It can also hold what's called a golden shadow, positive qualities that we suppressed because our environment didn't value them. A little boy shamed for being sensitive might push his creativity into the shadow. A young girl told to be quiet and nice might bury her assertiveness and leadership skills. The shadow, simply put, is the thing a person has no wish to be. The scary thing about the shadow is that the more we ignore it, the darker and more powerful it becomes. The things we push down don't just disappear. They operate from the unconscious, pulling the strings in our lives. As Jung famously said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's the power of an unexamined shadow. Its favorite trick is projection. That's when we unconsciously pin our own disowned traits onto other people. That coworker whose arrogance makes your blood boil, they might be mirroring a deep-seated arrogance in you. That group of people you despise with a fiery passion, they might be acting out the aggression you refuse to see in yourself. The person you judge most harshly for being lazy might just be reflecting your own repressed desire to rest and let go. Meeting the shadow is a critical part of individuation. Jung called it a tight passage, a narrow door that everyone on this path must go through. So, how do you do it? First, you have to withdraw your projections. This takes serious courage. It means looking at the people who trigger a huge emotional reaction in you, annoyance, rage, even obsessive admiration, and asking the tough question, what part of this is in me? This doesn't mean other people are perfect, but it recognizes that the intensity of our reaction is usually a sign that our own stuff has been activated. Second, practice compassionate self-observation. Pay attention to your slips of the tongue, your daydreams, and especially your dreams at night. The shadow often shows up in dreams as a dark, threatening figure of the same sex. The work is to turn and face that figure, to ask what it wants and what it has to teach you. Integrating the shadow doesn't mean becoming a bad person. It means becoming a whole person. It means acknowledging your anger so you can set healthy boundaries instead of letting it explode. It means accepting your selfish side so you can be genuinely generous, not resentfully so. It means owning your vulnerability so you can form real connections. By bringing the darkness into the light, we take away its destructive power and turn it into a source of strength, creativity, and authenticity. It's the messy, difficult work of turning lead into gold. And it's the only way to move forward. After you've faced the external mask of the persona and the internal darkness of the shadow, the journey takes you even deeper, to a meeting with a pair of archetypes that shape our relationships, our creativity, and our very soul, the anima and the animus. These archetypes represent the inner opposite. Jung proposed that every person contains a contrasexual aspect that complements their conscious gender identity. The anima is the unconscious feminine dimension within a man's psyche. The animus is the unconscious masculine dimension within a woman's psyche. For a man, the anima is first shaped by his mother and later by all the women who make an impression on him. She embodies qualities like intuition, relatedness, creativity, and deep emotion. For a woman, the animus is first shaped by her father and subsequent encounters with men. He represents qualities like logic, assertiveness, courage, and directed thought. Just like the shadow, if the anima or animus is unconscious, we experience it through projection. A man who isn't in touch with his own feminine side will project his anima onto a real woman. He falls head over heels, not with the actual person, but with the image of his own soul that he sees in her. This is the source of that intoxicating love at first sight obsession. He's looking for a woman to carry his soul for him, but no real person can live up to the divine image of an archetype. When she inevitably shows her own human flaws, he becomes moody and resentful, blaming her for letting him down. Similarly, a woman who is unconscious of her animus will project it onto a man. She might be drawn to men who seem to have all the authority, decisiveness, or logic she hasn't developed in herself. An unintegrated animus often shows up as a collection of rigid, second-hand opinions, holy convictions, that she argues with a stubborn logic, not to find truth, but to assert a borrowed authority. The work here is to withdraw these projections and integrate this inner opposite. This is a game changer. For a man, integrating his anima means developing his own capacity for feeling, intuition, and introspection. He learns to connect with his own inner life instead of needing a woman to make him feel whole. For a woman, integrating her animus means developing her own clear thinking, assertiveness, and courage. She learns to form her own well-reasoned opinions and act on them, finding her authority within herself. This is like an inner marriage, a sacred union inside the psyche. It brings everything into harmony. A man who has integrated his anima isn't less masculine. He's more deeply masculine, with his strength now balanced by heart. A woman who has integrated her animus isn't less feminine, she's more fully feminine, her nurturing side now supported by clarity and strength. They become more complete people, able to love out of wholeness, not out of needy projection. This inner balance is the crucial prep for the final stages of the journey. We've gone from the mask to the shadow to the inner other. This is deep, life-changing stuff. And if it's resonating with you, take a second to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We explore the depths of psychology and philosophy to find real tools for a more authentic life. Now, let's get back to it and meet the cast of characters that lives inside all of us. As you get further down this path, you start to realize your psyche isn't just one thing. It's a dynamic inner world populated by powerful universal patterns. Jung called these patterns archetypes. They live in what he termed the collective unconscious, a layer of the psyche shared by all of humanity. Think of them as the original blueprints for human experience, the software of the soul. While Jung identified the core archetypes like the shadow and anima, later thinkers like Carol S. Pearson built on his work, outlining 12 major archetypes that are incredibly helpful for understanding ourselves today. These aren't rigid boxes, but energies or roles we play at different times in our lives. Figuring out which ones are active in you is like getting a map for your own personal growth. Let's meet the 12. The eternal optimist who just wants to be happy and safe. They see the good in everyone and believe in happy endings, can be naive and in denial, making them easy to take advantage of. Where might your optimism be blinding you to a hard truth? Just wants to belong and connect. They are relatable, down to earth, and empathetic, fearing being left out, can lose their own identity just to fit in, leading to a victim mentality. In your desire to belong, what unique part of you have you hidden on a mission to prove their worth through courageous action and overcome challenges to improve the world? Can be arrogant, always needing an enemy to fight, and terrified of being vulnerable. What are you fighting for? Is it possible the real battle is one you're avoiding inside yourself? Driven by compassion and a desire to help and protect others, they are nurturing and selfless, can become a martyr, neglecting their own needs and using guilt to control the people they help. Are you giving from a full cup or from a place of deep, unmet need, yearns for freedom, adventure, and a journey to find out who they really are. They are independent and courageous, can become an aimless wanderer, never satisfied and unable to commit. Are you running toward something or running away from something? The revolutionary who wants to break the rules and overturn what isn't working can become destructive for destruction's sake with no positive goal in mind. What are you rebelling against, and what do you want to build in its place? Seeks intimacy, passion, and connection, not just romantically, but with all of life. Can lose themselves in another person or a passion, fearing being alone. Is your passion connecting you to yourself, or is it an escape from yourself? Driven to create something of enduring value, whether it's art, a business, or an idea, can get trapped in perfectionism and a fear of not being good enough. What masterpiece are you trying to create with your life? And are you giving yourself permission to be imperfect? Lives in the moment, loves to play, and reminds us not to take life so seriously, can be frivolous and use humor to hide from real problems and emotions. What serious truth are you hiding behind a joke? Seeks truth, knowledge, and wisdom, believing that the truth will set you free. Can get lost in theories and never act, becoming coldly detached from real life. What's one truth you know in your head that you haven't started living yet? A visionary who wants to understand the laws of the universe to make dreams a reality and create transformation, and become manipulative, using their knowledge to control others for selfish reasons. Are you using your power to transform and serve, or to control and manipulate? Loves control, order, and leadership. They want to create a prosperous and stable family, community, or company. Can become a tyrant, unable to delegate and crushing others with their need for control. What is the true domain you are meant to govern? And are you leading with responsibility or with fear? Recognizing which of these characters are running the show inside you is a huge part of individuation. It's about assembling your own inner council so you can draw on the wisdom of the whole team instead of being possessed by just one. This integration is what leads us to the final destination, the archetype of wholeness itself. This whole journey, facing the persona, integrating the shadow, uniting with the anima or animus, and getting to know our inner archetypes is all leading to one place, the realization of the self. In Jung's work, the self is the ultimate archetype. It's the archetype of wholeness, the wise, unifying center of your entire personality, including both the conscious and unconscious parts. If your ego is the manager of your conscious mind, the self is the CEO of your entire being. Jung often used symbols like circles or mandalas to represent the self, ancient symbols of unity. Realizing the self isn't something your ego can achieve by trying harder. In fact, it's the opposite. The ego doesn't create the self, it learns to listen to it. This realization is the culmination of the whole journey, the point where the conscious and unconscious learn to live in harmony, where the war inside you turns into a dance. So what does it feel like to be connected to the self? It isn't perfection, it's wholeness. It's the experience of being authentically yourself, free from the need to perform and free from being controlled by your unconscious baggage. It brings a sense of inner peace, purpose, and a connection to something bigger than your own little ego. When you're guided by the self, your actions have a feeling of rightness and integrity, even when things are hard. The self is the wise king or queen, the inner guide that was there all along, waiting to be discovered. It's a state where opposites come together, feminine and masculine, light and dark, conscious and unconscious. A person connected to the self hasn't gotten rid of their darkness, they've integrated it. They haven't lost their ego. Their ego now serves a higher, wiser authority. But it's so important to remember that individuation is a lifelong process. Realizing the self isn't a finish line you cross one day. It's a continuous journey of becoming. There will always be new challenges that knock you off center and call you back to do the work. The goal isn't to reach some static, perfect state, but to stay in a living, breathing relationship with this wise core of your being and let it guide your life. This is the ultimate adventure. It's the process of becoming who you were always meant to be. It's the discovery of your true self. We started this with a strange question. What if you're living as a character you didn't create? We've journeyed through the social masks we wear, the darkness we hide, the inner opposites we project, and the universal patterns that shape our souls. We've seen that the path to being real, the path of individuation, is a courageous journey inward. It's the work of a lifetime, but it's the most meaningful work you'll ever do. It's the journey from being an unconscious actor in a play you didn't write to becoming the conscious author of your own life. You contain all of it: the mask, the shadow, the hero, the caregiver, the rebel, the sage. Wholeness doesn't come from picking one and denying the rest. It comes from integrating them all under the wise guidance of the self. The journey doesn't end here. This is just the beginning. I want to invite you to keep exploring. Start looking at your life through this lens. Which archetypes are most alive in you right now? What is your shadow trying to tell you? Share your discoveries and questions in the comments below. Let's build a community of people on this path together. If this exploration sparked something in you, subscribe for more journeys into the depths of the human psyche. The path to your true self isn't easy, but you don't have to walk it alone. Remember, you're not here to be a perfect, polished version of someone else. You're here to be a complete and authentic version of yourself. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs you, your whole self. What if the parts of yourself you tried to hide, the pieces you've been taught to be ashamed of, are actually the key to your full potential? What if the anger, the jealousy, the laziness, the fear, what if all of that wasn't a personal failing, but a map leading straight to your greatest strengths and a more authentic life? In this deep dive, we are going on a journey into one of the most powerful concepts in psychology. I'm going to show you a powerful daily routine to face your dark side. But to truly understand the power of this practice, we first need to explore the terrain. We're going to illuminate the hidden architecture of your own mind and help you gain a level of self-awareness you might not have thought possible. This isn't about becoming someone new. It isn't about eradicating your flaws or achieving a state of sterile perfection. It's about remembering who you were before you learned you had to hide parts of yourself away to be accepted. It's about recovering the lost pieces of your soul. It's about becoming whole again. First, let's put a name to this dark side. The term was coined by the legendary Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, one of the founding fathers of modern psychology. He called it the shadow. Jung described it as the unknown side of our personality, the vast collection of everything we try to deny in ourselves. It's the repository for all the thoughts, feelings, memories, and impulses that we've deemed unacceptable and pushed down into the unseen corners of our unconscious mind. Think of it this way. The person you consciously present to the world is what Jung called the persona. The word persona comes from the Latin for the masks worn by actors in ancient Greece, and it's a fitting term. It's the public face you've carefully crafted to be liked, to fit in, and to navigate society. It's the good employee, the loving partner, the responsible citizen. But this mask, this curated version of you, is just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface is the shadow, a huge hidden part of you, holding everything that doesn't fit with the image on that mask. This process of splitting ourselves in two begins in childhood. When we're born, we're whole. A baby doesn't judge its anger or its neediness as good or bad. It just is. But as we grow up, we receive constant feedback from our parents, teachers, friends, and society at large. Maybe you were told that being loud and boisterous was rude, so you learned to quiet your natural exuberance. Maybe you were taught that crying was a sign of weakness, or that anger was unacceptable, so you learned to bottle up your sadness and rage. Perhaps you were praised for being compliant and easygoing, so you repressed your assertive, boundary-setting instincts. Or maybe you were teased for being a know-it-all, so you learned to hide your intelligence to avoid social rejection. These rejected parts, the anger, the selfishness, the vulnerability, the intelligence, the creative impulses, they don't just vanish when we push them away. They get relegated to the shadow. They become, as Jung powerfully put it, the thing a person has no wish to be. And the more perfect and one-sided our persona is, the larger and darker the shadow it casts behind it. It's important to understand that the shadow isn't just personal. it's also collective. Every culture, society, and even family has its own set of taboos and unwritten rules about what is acceptable. These collective values create a collective shadow, filled with the ideas and behaviors that the group deems unacceptable. Think of historical witch hunts, where an entire community projected its collective shadow onto certain individuals, leading to destruction. On a smaller scale, a family might have a collective shadow around financial failure or artistic pursuits, causing its members to repress any feelings or ambitions related to those areas. We absorb these things unconsciously, adding layers to our own personal shadow. So we build our persona, the mask of the respectable, acceptable person, while carefully hiding this shadow side, often even from ourselves. The classic story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is the perfect literary picture of this split. One is the esteemed doctor, the perfect persona. The other is the monstrous Mr. Hyde, the embodiment of the repressed shadow, locked away. But as that story so brilliantly illustrates, what we push down doesn't stay down forever. It always finds a way out, often in the most destructive ways imaginable. So what happens when we ignore such a huge part of who we are? What is the price of maintaining this internal division? Jung himself warned, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. When we leave it to fester in the dark, the shadow doesn't just sit there quietly. It gains power. It begins running the show from behind the scenes, hijacking our best intentions and secretly pulling the strings of our life. Ignoring your shadow has severe consequences. It creates a state of perpetual inner conflict, a low-grade war inside your own mind. This internal battle is profoundly exhausting. It's like dragging an invisible 100-pound weight of repressed energy with you everywhere you go, which drains your vitality and can contribute to the very real physical toll of chronic stress, anxiety, and depression. It brings to mind the idea that the opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's expression. When a massive part of you is locked away, you can't be fully expressed and your life force diminishes. One of the sneakiest and most damaging ways the shadow causes trouble is through psychological projection. This is a defense mechanism where we take the traits we cannot accept in ourselves and, unconsciously, we attribute them to other people. As Jung wisely pointed out, the things that we criticize, judge, and condemn most harshly in others are often the very things that live and breathe in our own shadow. Have you ever had a ridiculously strong, disproportionate negative reaction to someone? Maybe you can't stand a person you perceive as arrogant, or you get deeply irrationally annoyed by a lazy coworker. That intense emotional reaction, that trigger, is a giant flashing neon signpost pointing directly at your own shadow. You're very likely seeing your own disowned arrogance or laziness reflected back at you. Your intense reaction isn't really about them. It's your psyche's way of trying to show you a piece of yourself you've refused to look at. This constant projection can poison our relationships. Friendships fall apart over misunderstandings, family ties become strained, and romantic partnerships become battlegrounds for our unacknowledged issues. We might accuse a partner of being controlling when we are refusing to see our own control issues. And projection isn't just for negative traits. We also project our disowned positive traits. This is called the golden shadow. It represents all the potential, the brilliance, the creativity, and the strength that we've repressed, often because we were taught it was arrogant to shine too brightly, or we were afraid of the responsibility that comes with our own power. We then project this gold onto others, putting them on a pedestal. We idolize mentors, gurus, or celebrities, seeing in them the greatness we fail to see in ourselves. In romance, we might project our golden shadow onto a partner, believing they are our other half who completes us, only to become furious when they inevitably fail to live up to our impossible projected standards. As long as we are convinced the problem or the solution is out there, we avoid the real healing work of looking within. Ultimately, ignoring the shadow leads to a life of self-sabotage. If you fail to make the unconscious conscious, Jung warned, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You find yourself stuck in the same painful loops, a series of failed relationships, career ruts, self-destructive habits, never realizing that the script is being written by the hidden parts of yourself, The immense energy you use to push your shadow down doesn't go away. It builds and builds, and when it finally erupts, its expression can be sudden, overwhelming, and destructive. Ignoring your shadow doesn't make you safe. It makes you vulnerable to the most unpredictable and powerful force in your life, yourself. So what if there was a way to stop this cycle, a way to turn down the volume on your harsh inner critic, to finally understand your emotional triggers, and to reclaim the immense energy you've been spending every single day to keep parts of yourself hidden? There is, and it's called shadow work. Shadow work is simply the process of turning to face the shadow. It's about consciously shining the light of awareness into those dark corners of your psyche. The goal is not to judge, condemn, or get rid of what you find there, but to understand and, ultimately, to integrate it. It's about reuniting the bad and the ugly with the good, so you can stop being a house divided against itself and become a complete, whole person again. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to be whole. The benefits of this courageous work are truly life-changing. First, shadow work builds authentic, unshakable confidence. When you stop hiding from yourself, the deep-seated self-doubt and insecurity begin to dissolve. You no longer need to waste energy defending the mask you wear. You simply become okay with who you are, flaws, strengths, and everything in between. This isn't the fragile fake-it-till-you-make-it kind of confidence. This is a deep-down, resilient confidence that comes from radical self-acceptance. Second, your relationships will transform. When you take responsibility for your own darkness, you become infinitely more compassionate and understanding toward the darkness in others. Their behavior won't trigger you as much because you'll recognize the same human patterns in yourself. This allows for healthier, more honest, and more intimate connections built on empathy rather than projection. Third, you free up a tremendous amount of your energy and creativity. Holding parts of yourself down is a massive drain on your life force. By integrating your shadow, you liberate that repressed energy. It becomes available for you to use, for your goals, for your passions, for living a more vibrant and creative life. Many people find that their shadow holds repressed talents, untapped strengths, and powerful creative impulses just waiting to be discovered. That anger you've suppressed could be the fuel for setting powerful boundaries. That sadness could be the wellspring of deep empathy. Finally, shadow work leads to true self-awareness and personal sovereignty. It gets you unstuck. It helps you understand what truly drives you, what you're afraid of, and what you deeply desire. You go from being a passenger in your life, tossed around by unconscious forces, to being the one in the driver's seat. This journey, as Jung noted, takes real moral effort and a commitment to being honest with yourself, even when it's profoundly uncomfortable. But the reward is nothing less than transformation. It's a return to the wholeness of who you truly are. This might all sound a little heavy or abstract, but beginning this journey doesn't require years of therapy or a deep knowledge of Jungian theory. It can begin with a journal and a commitment to consistency. Journaling is one of the most effective and accessible ways to start because it creates a safe, private, non-judgmental space to bring your unconscious thoughts and feelings into the light of consciousness. A quick but important note: while journaling is a safe and powerful starting point for most people, if you know you are working through deep trauma, please consider doing this work with the support of a qualified therapist or professional guide. This work is about creating safety, not re-traumatizing yourself. Here is a foundational routine you can do every day. The key is consistency, and most of all, a commitment to radical honesty and self-compassion. No one else ever has to see this. This is for you alone. First, find a spot where you won't be disturbed. This is your sacred time. You might light a candle, play some quiet ambient music, or simply sit in the silence. The goal is to create a small ritual that signals to your mind and body that it's time to go inward. Close your eyes. Take 3 slow, deep breaths. Inhale deeply through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. With each exhale, consciously let go of the day's tensions. For this time, your only job is to meet yourself with curiosity and compassion. Open your journal. The first prompt is designed to help you spot the shadow as it appears in your day-to-day life. Triggers are our greatest teachers. Ask yourself, What situation, person, or event triggered a strong emotional reaction in me today or recently? A trigger is any emotional response that feels bigger than the situation seems to warrant. It could be anger, jealousy, irritation, shame, envy, or even intense admiration or infatuation, which points to the golden shadow. Be specific. Don't just write, "My friend was annoying." Write down exactly what they did or said. How did that feeling manifest in your body? A tight chest, a hot face, a knot in your stomach. Now explore it with these follow-up questions. What's the story I'm telling myself about this situation? What does it mean about me, them, or the world? Does this feeling seem familiar? When have I felt this way before? Can I trace it back to an earlier time in my life? What specific trait in that other person am I reacting to so strongly? That last question is the key that unlocks the door. Remember, projection is our biggest clue. The trait that bothers you so intensely in someone else is very likely a disowned part of yourself. Now it's time for the most courageous part, integration. Look at the trait you just identified, the laziness, the arrogance, the need for attention, the weakness. Now, with as much honesty as you can muster, ask yourself this powerful question: how and where is this trait also true of me? In what ways do I or could I embody this same quality? This can be a tough pill to swallow. Your ego will immediately want to resist and say, "Nope, not me. I'm not like that at all." Your job is to gently and curiously push past that resistance. Look for the evidence, no matter how small or how far back in your past. Have you ever been lazy, selfish, arrogant, needy? The answer is almost certainly yes, because these are universal human traits. Once you've found some examples, write a sentence of radical acceptance. Something like, "Accept that a part of me has the capacity to be lazy, and that's okay. I acknowledge my own potential for selfishness, and I can be compassionate with that part of myself." This is not about condoning harmful behavior. It is about owning the potential for it within you. By owning it, you take its secret power away. It can no longer control you from the shadows, because you've brought it into the light, where you can consciously choose how to act. Then search for the gold hidden in the shadow. Our shadow doesn't just hold our flaws, it also holds our greatest undeveloped strengths. That laziness you hate might be your psyche screaming for you to learn how to rest. That anger you fear might be the powerful energy you need to set healthy boundaries. Ask yourself, what is the positive intention or hidden strength behind this shadow trait? What gift might it be holding for me? To finish, it is essential to close the loop with self-compassion. This work can be draining, especially at first. You've just done something incredibly brave. Read back over what you wrote. Take another deep breath. End your entry by writing a short, kind message to yourself. Answer one of these prompts. What does my inner self most need to hear from me right now? How can I be kinder and more accepting of all parts of myself today? I am willing to forgive myself for. Place your hand on your heart and genuinely thank yourself for showing up to do this profound work. Close your journal. Take one last deep breath and then go on with your day, a little more whole than when you started. This journey into the shadow is deeply personal, but you don't have to do it alone. The prompts we've used today are just the beginning of a rich and rewarding exploration. To help you go deeper, I've created a free, comprehensive PDF workbook called the Shadow Integration Starter Kit. It includes 30 more powerful journaling prompts, exercises to help you explore your dreams, and a detailed guide to identifying your personal shadow archetypes. It's completely free, and you can download it using the link in the description below. It's my gift to you to support you on this transformative path. Facing your shadow is one of the bravest and most profound acts of self-love there is. It's not about a battle to get rid of your flaws. It's about integration. It's about wholeness. It's about embracing the fundamental truth that life is a dance between light and shadow, joy and pain, strength and vulnerability. You cannot have one without the other. By showing up for this practice each day, you begin to dissolve the inner conflicts that have been holding you back. You stop seeing your triggers as problems and start seeing them as messengers from your deeper self. You take your power back from the unconscious patterns that have been running your life and calling it fate. You become more authentic, more compassionate, and more deeply, fully yourself. You don't find a monster lurking in the shadows. You find the rest of yourself, waiting to come home. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive today. If this resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more content on conscious growth. I'd love to build a community around this courageous work, so please share your thoughts in the comments. What's one thing you've learned about your own shadow? Your courage will undoubtedly inspire someone else. Be well and be whole. What if a simple drawing could show you what's really going on inside your head? What if a circle drawn on a piece of paper was actually a map to the hidden parts of your own soul? It sounds like something from an old myth, but this exact idea was a key part of the work of one of the 20th century's most important thinkers. For centuries, people have been drawn to the circle. You can see it in the rose windows of huge cathedrals, the detailed sand paintings of Tibetan monks, and the cosmic calendars of ancient cultures. It's a universal symbol for things like eternity, wholeness, and the universe itself. But for the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, the circle became something more. It became a secret weapon. He found that when his patients, and even he himself, couldn't find the words for their deepest fears, longings, and feelings, they could draw them. And in those drawings, a living picture of their own hidden psychology was revealed. This is the story of how an ancient symbol became a powerful tool for therapy, a compass for the human mind. This is the story of Jung's secret weapon, the mandala. And by the end of this, you won't just understand how it works. You'll know how you can use this same key to start opening the door to your own inner world. To get why the solution is so powerful, we first have to get the problem. It's a feeling we all know, but it's also deeply personal. It's the feeling of inner chaos. Think about those moments when you just feel lost. The world feels loud and broken, and your own mind is a battlefield of conflicting thoughts and feelings. You feel pulled in a dozen different directions at once. There's an anxiety that doesn't seem to have a cause, or a sadness you can't put a name on. You feel disconnected, not just from everyone else, but from yourself. It's a kind of mental fragmentation that's so common today. This feeling of being totally overwhelmed by the noise of life, both outside and in. In these moments, words fail us. How do you explain a feeling that has no shape? How do you describe that inner storm to someone, or even to yourself, when the words just don't seem to fit? We might say, I'm stressed, or I'm confused, but those are just labels, faint echoes of the real storm inside. Our conscious mind, which loves logic and language, is helpless here. It can describe the waves, but it can't map the ocean depths. And this is where a lot of traditional therapy hits a wall. So much of it is about talking, about putting our experiences into words. But what happens when the most important parts of our story are locked in a place that words can't reach? What if our deepest wounds and biggest truths aren't verbal at all, but live inside us as raw feelings and images? This is the exact problem Jungian psychology tries to solve. It understands that our conscious ego, the part we think of as me, is just a tiny island in the massive ocean of the psyche. Under the surface is the huge, mysterious world of the unconscious, and the roots of our chaos are often found right there. Jung believed that our psychological problems often come from a split between our conscious and unconscious minds. That feeling of being lost or fake is a symptom of this disconnection. So the question becomes, how do you build a bridge to that hidden part of yourself? How do you start a conversation with a part of your mind that doesn't speak your language? If you can't talk your way out of the chaos, what other path is there? The answer, as Jung found out through his own terrifying experience, wasn't something to be spoken, it was something to be drawn. It was about giving form to the formless, and in doing so, finding a center in the middle of the storm. To really get the power of the mandala, we have to go back to a point in Carl Jung's life when everything fell apart. It was 1913. Jung, who had been a rising star in psychoanalysis, just had a very painful and public split with his mentor, Sigmund Freud. This breakup left him feeling totally alone and lost, cut off from the very field he'd helped create. But this professional crisis was just a mirror of a much deeper one happening inside him. As Europe was sliding into the chaos of World War I, Jung was falling into his own inner abyss. He was hit with terrifying visions and deeply disturbing dreams. He called it his confrontation with the unconscious, a time when the solid ground of his rational, scientific mind just crumbled. He honestly felt he was on the edge of psychosis, facing an alien inner world that was threatening to swallow him whole. Instead of fighting it, he made a brave choice. He turned and faced it. He decided to make his own mind the subject of his most intense and dangerous experiment. He started documenting this journey in a series of black journals, which later became his legendary and long secret work, the Red Book. This wasn't some academic paper. It was a raw, unfiltered record of his descent into his own psyche. Part diary, part myth, he filled its huge pages with beautiful calligraphy and stunning, colorful paintings of the figures and places he met in his visions. He was doing what he later called active imagination. He didn't just analyze his dreams, he walked into them, had conversations with the strange figures that came out of his unconscious, and let their stories play out. It was during this incredibly intense time, around 1916, that he started a strange new daily habit. Every morning, he'd get out his notebook and draw a small, circular picture in his own words from his autobiography, Memories, Dreams, Reflections. He wrote, "I sketched every morning in a notebook a small circular drawing, a mandala, which seemed to correspond to my inner situation at the time. With the help of these drawings, I could observe my psychic transformations from day to day, and this wasn't about making pretty art. It was an act of survival. In the middle of the psychic storm inside him, the simple act of drawing a circle and filling it in was a way to ground himself. It was a way to create a small, safe space where the chaos could be given a shape. Each drawing was a snapshot of his inner life. Some days the circle might feel calm and balanced. Other days it might be tense, broken, or dark. He was essentially his own first patient. He was using these drawings as coded messages from a deeper part of himself that he didn't understand yet. He didn't start with a theory he wanted to prove. The theory came from the experience. He discovered through direct and often scary experience that his mind had a natural drive toward order and wholeness. Even when it was at its most chaotic, it was trying to heal itself, trying to organize itself around a center. He wrote that these drawings were like cryptograms concerning the state of the self, which were presented to me anew each day, and that was the light bulb moment. These spontaneous circles weren't just random doodles. They were expressions of the self, the totality of his personality, which was trying to find balance. He was just beginning to understand what the mandala really was, but he knew he had found something incredibly important. He had found a tool that could not only show the state of the inner world, but could also help to shape it. He had forged a key in the fire of his own crisis, a key that would change how we understand the mind. So Jung had this personal breakthrough, and being a scholar, he started looking outward to understand what he'd found. What was this circular drawing that had shown up so naturally when he needed it most? With his knowledge of Eastern philosophy, he quickly found a name for it: mandala. Mandala is an old Sanskrit word that literally means circle or center, but its meaning is so much deeper than that. For thousands of years, mandalas have been used as spiritual tools in countless cultures, as symbols of the universe and our place in it. They are sacred maps of both the cosmos and the soul. In Hinduism and Buddhism, the mandala represents the universe and is a focus for meditation. You've probably seen the famous Tibetan sand mandalas, where monks spend days making these incredibly detailed designs out of millions of grains of colored sand. The creation is a deep spiritual practice, and when they finally sweep it all away, it's a powerful lesson in how nothing lasts forever. In these traditions, the mandala is a tool to guide you from the illusion of being a separate person toward an understanding of a divine, universal whole. But the mandala isn't just an Eastern thing. You see its shape all over the world, which, for Jung, was evidence of a shared collective unconscious. You see it in the circular calendar of the Aztecs. You see it in the medicine wheels of Native American traditions, used for healing and finding your place in the circle of life. You can even see its principles right in the West. Look at the beautiful rose windows of Gothic cathedrals, like the one at Chartres. Those are mandalas, with segments radiating out from a central point, often showing Christ or the Virgin Mary, symbolizing divine order. Seeing this pattern everywhere confirmed for Jung that he was onto something huge. It was proof that the mandala was an archetype, a basic universal pattern baked into the human psyche. It belongs to all of us. This was the solution to the problem of inner chaos. The mandala is the mind's natural, built-in answer to feeling broken. As Jung put it, the strict pattern of a circle compensates the disorder of the psychic state, namely through the construction of a central point to which everything is related. It is, in his words, an attempt at self-healing on the part of nature, which does not spring from conscious reflection, but from an instinctive impulse. This impulse comes from what Jung called the self. Now, it's really important to know the difference between the self and the ego. The ego, for Jung, is the center of your conscious mind, the part you think of as I. But the self is the center of your entire personality, both conscious and unconscious. If your ego is the earth, the self is the entire solar system. The self is the organizing core of the psyche, the archetype of wholeness that pushes us toward what Jung called individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who we truly are. So the mandala is a symbol of the self. When a person spontaneously draws a mandala, it's an expression of this core archetype. It's the psyche's way of saying, here is the center, here is wholeness, here is the order underneath all the chaos. The urge to create them often shows up during times of intense crisis or growth, because that's exactly when the mind's rebalancing process kicks into high gear. It's a sign that a deep integration is happening. The mandala provides a container, a sacred circle, where this tough but transformative work can happen. It's both a map and a vessel for the journey back to your own center. This all sounds like a great theory, but how does it actually work when you sit down with a patient? This is where Jung saw its true therapeutic power. He started asking patients, especially those who had a hard time talking about their feelings, to just draw. He found that even people with zero artistic training and no clue what a mandala was, would spontaneously create these circular, centered designs. This happened so consistently that it became one of his key pieces of evidence for the collective unconscious. The process was simple, but the results were life-changing. So, how does it actually work? First, and most importantly, making a mandala gives form to feelings. It provides an outlet for intense emotions without needing words. We've all felt things that are so overwhelming or confusing that words just feel small and useless. For people dealing with trauma or deep psychological issues, language can be a huge barrier. One psychologist, Singer, described a male client who couldn't talk about his dreams or emotions at all, but he could draw them as mandalas. The act of drawing bypasses the part of our brain that wants to censor everything. The hand can express what the tongue cannot. It lets the hidden parts of the psyche speak in their native language, the language of symbols, colors, and shapes. Second, the mandala works by bringing opposites together. A core idea in Jungian psychology is that our minds are full of opposing forces, conscious and unconscious, thinking and feeling, masculine and feminine, and maybe the most famous pair, the persona and the shadow. The persona is the social mask we show the world, while the shadow holds all the parts of ourselves we hide or deny. Wholeness isn't about getting rid of one side, it's about integrating them. The mandala is a natural symbol for this. Its structure, often based on the number 4, the quaternity, represents this balance. Think of the 4 points of a compass, the 4 seasons, the 4 ancient elements. 4 is an archetypal symbol of stability and completeness. By working within this 4-part structure, a person is unconsciously doing the psychic work of balancing these internal opposites. Third, the act of drawing a mandala creates a protected, sacred space. The circle itself acts as a container, like a magic circle drawn for protection. The border of the mandala creates a safe zone where the mind's most volatile contents can be explored without overwhelming you. Inside this circle, you can confront your shadow, wrestle with difficult emotions, and explore scary inner landscapes, all within a shape that reinforces order and centeredness. It soothes our fight or flight response by constantly bringing us back to the center. You can see this process beautifully in how his patient's drawings changed over time. Jung documented many cases where the evolution of their mandalas mirrored their journey toward healing. He wrote about a young woman whose early mandalas showed a fight between civilization and nature, reflecting her own conflict over her career versus having a child. Her later mandalas showed that she had found a resolution. In another case, a woman's first mandala was dark on the outside, which Jung saw as reflecting a lack of connection to the world. As she worked through her issues in therapy, a later mandala became much brighter and more open. Perhaps the most famous case was a 59-year-old American woman known as Miss X who came to Jung in the 1920s. She wasn't an artist, but she loved to paint. Her series of mandala paintings shows a clear progression, not just in her artistic skill, but in her psychological integration. Her work, and the work of many other patients, was so important that it's been exhibited publicly. The images are vivid and complex, filled with repeating symbols like snakes, eggs, and fish. The incredible care these patients put into their drawings shows how important this inner work was to them. One powerful example comes from Christine Mann, an early follower of Jung. One of her last mandalas, made while she had cancer, shows the circle floating just above the floor of a dark pit, a deeply moving picture of her state of mind. And the amazing thing is, Jung wasn't telling his patients what to draw. He was just watching a natural process unfold. The psyche, when you give it the right tools and a safe space, knows how to heal itself. The mandala isn't the cure, it's the map of the cure. It's the evidence of a deep instinctual drive inside every one of us to move from chaos to order, from being broken to being whole. Once you've made a mandala, what does it all mean? This is where you move from creating to reflecting. And the first thing you have to know is that this isn't a simple code book. It's not a test where a square means this and the color red means that. It's a deeply personal language. The mandala is a mirror of your inner world in a single moment. That said, Jung did notice some common elements that can help you understand the message your own psyche is sending you. The most important element is the center. The center of the mandala usually represents the self, the very core of your being. How it looks tells you a lot. Is the center strong and clear, or is it weak and fading? Is it empty, maybe suggesting a feeling of emptiness? Or, more positively, room for something new? Is it protected, or is it being attacked by other things in the drawing? A chaotic or shattered center might reflect a mind in turmoil, while a bright, star-like center could show a deep sense of peace and integration. The key is the relationship of everything else to this central point. Are things moving toward it, away from it, or circling it in a balanced way? Next is the overall structure, especially how circles and squares play together, and the meaning of numbers. The circle represents wholeness and the eternal. A square, on the other hand, often stands for the earth, reality, and stability. How they interact can show the relationship between your inner world and your outer life. A circle inside a square might suggest your psyche is finding stability in the real world. A square inside a circle could mean your earthly life is held within a greater spiritual reality. The number of divisions is also telling. As we've said, Jung really focused on the quadratunity, or the number 4. He saw it as a symbol of completeness, representing the balance of the 4 functions of the mind: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. A mandala that's clearly split into 4 sections often points to a state of stability. On the other hand, a mandala based on the number 3 might suggest something is still in motion, a transformation that hasn't settled yet. While some classical Jungians might see it as unstable because it's missing the 4th element, it's also powerful in its own right, symbolizing flow, creation, and things like past, present, future, or life, death, rebirth. Colors and symbols add another rich layer, but this is the most personal part of the interpretation. Colors can tap into universal meanings: red for passion or anger, blue for calm or sadness, green for growth and healing. But your personal association is what matters most. The specific shades and where they are they contained or spilling out, clashing or in harmony? Provide more clues. Symbols that pop up are also incredibly powerful. A snake, for instance, could mean healing, like the rod of Asclepius, transformation, shedding its skin, or danger. A flower can symbolize spiritual awakening. A star might represent a new awareness. The meaning has to be explored in the context of your own life. What does a snake mean to you? The power is in the conversation between you and the image you created. So the big idea here isn't about getting a definitive answer. It's about starting a conversation with yourself. Jung's goal was never to give his patients the answers. It was to help them ask better questions. The mandala is the visual starting point for that dialogue. By looking at the image you've made, you can start to understand its message, making the unconscious conscious. The drawing becomes a bridge, letting the wisdom of your deeper mind enrich your daily life, leading to a truer understanding of who you are. Okay, so we've talked about the history and the theory. Now it's your turn. Because this isn't just a cool piece of psychological history, it's a real, accessible practice that you can start today. The biggest thing that holds people back is thinking you need to be an artist. You have to let that idea go. As one workshop teacher put it so well, when you make a mandala, there is nothing to prove and there is nobody to please. The mandala comes from within you, from your own creative self. Therefore, it is worthy work. You could draw a big black blob, and if it means something to you, it's a perfect mandala. The goal is expression, not perfection. So, here's your invitation. Sometime in the next day or two, find a quiet moment. Grab a blank sheet of paper and something to draw with. Pencils, pens, markers, whatever you have. You don't need special supplies. First, draw a circle on the paper. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can trace a bowl or just draw it freehand. This is your sacred space, your container. Then, for the next 10 or 15 minutes, just let your hand move inside that circle. Don't plan it, don't judge it, don't try to make it look like anything. Let go of your inner critic. Maybe you'll draw lines and shapes. Maybe certain colors will call to you. Maybe an image will start to appear. Just follow your gut. If distracting thoughts pop up, and they will, just notice them and let them float by, bringing your focus back to the paper. Think of it as a meditation, where you're listening to your inner self. When you feel like you're done, put your pen down. Take a moment to just look at what you've made. Don't rush to figure it out. Just sit with it. What feeling does it give you? What part of the drawing grabs your attention? If you want, you can jot down a few thoughts on the back of the paper. You can do this just once, or you can try it every day for a week like Jung did, and see if you notice any changes. What would your inner world look like if you drew it today? What colors would be in it? Would it be chaotic or orderly, dark or light, empty or full? This practice is your personal invitation to find out. Ultimately, the journey of the mandala is the journey back to yourself. It starts with that universal feeling of inner chaos, of being fragmented and lost in a world that pulls us away from our core. It was in the depths of his own crisis that Carl Jung rediscovered this ancient tool. He learned that when words fail, symbols can speak. He saw that the human mind has a natural intelligence, an instinctive drive to create order out of chaos. The mandala is the purest expression of that drive. It's a mirror for the soul, a tool that lets us safely give shape to our hidden emotions and bring together the conflicting parts of who we are. It's a visual map of the healing process, showing us the path back to our own center. As Jung so beautifully put it, it became increasingly plain to me that the mandala is the center. It is the exponent of all paths. It is the path to the center, to individuation. The transformation it offers is real. By engaging with this simple practice, we stop being passive victims of our inner turmoil and become active participants in our own healing. We build a bridge to the vast wisdom of our unconscious, letting its insights enrich and balance our conscious lives. We learn to find peace in the chaos and to reconnect with the calm, whole self that is always waiting just beneath the surface. The secret of the mandala is really the secret of you. It's a reminder that even in your most chaotic moments, there is a center point inside you, a source of harmony and strength. The simple act of drawing a circle can be a profound act of coming home to yourself, revealing the beautiful, complex, and whole person you are meant to be. You do it every day. You put on the professional mask, you straighten your smile, and you become the person you're paid to be. You're competent, compliant, A team player. You speak the language. You know the rituals. You attend the meetings, optimize the workflows, and manage the expectations. You chase the promotions. You hit the targets. You climb the ladder that everyone agrees is the right one to climb. You build a resume that looks like a monument to success. So why does it feel like you're succeeding at a game you never actually wanted to play? Why does the applause feel hollow and the evenings so empty? Why, after a day of being so professionally on, do you feel so personally off? That growing disconnect you feel, that quiet sense that you're losing touch with the real you, isn't just in your head. It isn't a personal failing or a sign of weakness. What if I told you that nearly a century ago, the psychologist Carl Jung gave us the tools to understand this exact feeling? He identified a profound psychological split that he believed was a central sickness of the modern world. He warned of a progressive alienation from our instinctual foundation. And when we apply his ideas to our work lives today, it becomes clear that this split is quite literally destroying your soul. This isn't just about burnout. This is about a slow, creeping existential erosion. And understanding it is the first step to reclaiming your life. Let's be honest about the modern workplace. For most of us, it's a stage. And on this stage, we are all performers. The moment you log on to that first video call of the day, you are stepping into a role. The role is the professional. This character is unflappable, endlessly positive, strategically focused, and always busy. This character uses words like synergy, leverage, bandwidth, and circle back, not because they're the clearest way to communicate, but because they are the costume. They signal belonging. They're the secret handshake of corporate conformity. This performance is exhausting. It's low-grade, constant fume of self-monitoring. Am I looking engaged enough on this call? Was that email worded diplomatically enough? Am I projecting confidence? Should I speak up to show I'm contributing or stay quiet to avoid saying the wrong thing? It's 1,000 tiny calculations a day, all designed to maintain the mask. And the data confirms this isn't just a feeling, it's a widespread reality. A recent survey showed that a staggering 73% of us admit to having a work personality that differs from our true self. Think about that. In a place where we spend an estimated 90,000 hours of our lives, a massive portion of the population feels like they have to pretend to be someone else. It's no wonder that global reports on the workplace paint such a grim picture. This leads to a profound and tragic paradox, one that many of you have likely felt deep in your bones. It's the paradox of the ladder. You spend years, maybe decades, honing your skills, sacrificing your time, and pouring your energy into climbing the corporate ladder. You do everything right. You get the degrees, the certifications, the promotions. You reach a rung that, from the ground, looked like the pinnacle of success. But when you get there, you look around, and a chilling realization dawns on you. The ladder was leaning against the wrong wall the entire time. The view from the top isn't fulfilling. It's just higher. The success is real, but the satisfaction is not. This feeling isn't a bug in your personal system. It's a feature of the professional world we've built. The system rewards the performance, not the person. It values the mask, not the soul behind it. The result is an epidemic of what we call burnout, but which is actually something far deeper. Recent Gallup reports show that globally, only about 23% of employees feel engaged at work. The rest are either quiet quitting or loud quitting, emotionally and psychologically checking out. People feel emotionally drained and used up at the end of the workday. Not from hard labor, but from the soul-crushing effort of living an inauthentic life. When we experience this, our first instinct is often to blame ourselves. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I need to be more grateful. But you need to hear this. You are not exhausted because you are weak. You are not cynical because you are negative. You are exhausted and cynical because you have spent years pouring your finite life force into a performance that doesn't nourish you. You are suffering from a spiritual starvation. The emptiness you feel is not a sign of your failure. It's a sign that your true self is still alive, and it is sounding an alarm. It's a desperate message from the core of your being, telling you that the mask is suffocating you. And a brilliant, controversial, and prophetic Swiss psychiatrist understood this alarm better than anyone. What if that feeling of being a fraud, that burnout, that gnawing emptiness, isn't a malfunction, but a message, a perfectly sane reaction to an insane situation. This is where we turn to Carl Jung, famed psychologist, a one-time protege of Freud, and a thinker who delved into the myths, dreams, and spiritual undercurrents of human life. Jung looked at the emerging modern world of the early 20th century, a world of increasing bureaucracy, mass society, and rationalism, and he saw a great danger. He warned that our deepest miseries were caused by a progressive alienation from his instinctual foundation. And to understand this alienation, he gave us a map of the psyche with 3 key landmarks we need to visit: the persona, the shadow, and the concept of the soul itself. First, let's talk about that mask. Jung had a name for it: the persona. The term comes from the Latin word for the masks worn by actors in ancient Greek drama. It was the character they played on stage. For Jung, the persona is the social mask we wear to navigate the world. It's how we present ourselves to others, the curated version of us that is designed for public consumption. It's the good student, the responsible parent, and, most potently for us, the competent professional. Now, Jung was clear that the persona is not inherently evil. It's a necessary tool for social interaction. You don't want your surgeon having a full-blown existential crisis during your operation. You want her to wear the persona of a calm, confident professional. The persona is a functional necessity. The danger, Jung warned, arises when we mistake the mask for our actual face. When we over-identify with our persona, we invest so much energy into maintaining the performance that we forget we are even performing. The role consumes the actor. In modern work, this is practically a requirement. Your LinkedIn profile is a monument to your persona. Your performance reviews are grades for your persona. Your personal brand is the project of selling your persona on the open market. He warned this leads to a culture of insincerity, where pretending becomes a way of life. We become so good at projecting competence and positivity that we lose touch with our own authentic feelings. We say, "I'm passionate about leveraging synergistic assets," when what we really mean is, "I need this job to pay my mortgage." The gap between the performed self and the real self grows wider, and living in that gap is profoundly draining. It's a gilded cage. From the outside, the persona looks like a shiny armor of success. But from the inside, it's a prison that separates us from our own vitality. And everything we lock out of that cage to maintain the facade, it doesn't just disappear, it gathers in the darkness, waiting. Every persona casts a shadow. The shadow, in Jungian psychology, is everything we repress, reject, and deny about ourselves. It's the dark side of our personality, not because it's evil, but because it's hidden from the light of our conscious awareness. It contains all the impulses, emotions, and desires that are incompatible with our chosen persona. It is, as one of Jung's followers put it, the thing a person has no wish to be. So, what parts of ourselves do we banish to the shadow in the modern workplace? Think about it. We suppress our vulnerability because we must appear strong. We suppress our creative impulses that don't serve a quarterly goal because they are distractions. We suppress our dissent, our righteous anger, our profound boredom, our doubts about the company's mission. We hide our anxieties, our messiness, our eccentricities. All of these vital human qualities are deemed unprofessional, so we lock them away. But the shadow does not go away. The more we repress it, the more powerful it becomes. It festers in the dark, and it finds ways to erupt. That sudden outburst of rage at a minor inconvenience, that's the shadow. The deep, soul-crushing cynicism that greets every new corporate initiative, that's the shadow. The compulsive procrastination, the passive-aggressive emails, the burnout that feels less like tiredness and more like a total system failure. These are all symptoms of a shadow screaming for attention. They are the revenge of the parts of ourselves we have tried to kill. One of the most destructive ways the shadow operates is through projection. When we can't face a quality in ourselves, we project it onto others and attack it there. Is there a colleague you find unbearably arrogant? Jung might suggest you look for a repressed ambition in your own shadow. Is your boss a micromanager? Perhaps it reflects your own disowned need for control. This isn't to say others are blameless, But projection poisons our relationships and prevents us from doing the crucial work of self-acknowledgement. It keeps us convinced the enemy is out there, when the most dangerous conflict is raging within. When Jung spoke of the soul, he wasn't necessarily being religious. He was describing the vital, authentic core of a person, their true self, their connection to a life of meaning. The destruction of the soul in modern work is not a dramatic event. It's a slow death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's the cumulative effect of living a divided life. This is the central crisis, the progressive alienation from our instinctual foundation. Work, once a source of identity, becomes a place of estrangement. The relentless focus on metrics and conformity severs us from our instincts and creativity. We are not cogs in a machine, yet we are told constantly that we must operate like them. This is why modern burnout feels so different from mere physical exhaustion. It's an existential fatigue. It's the exhaustion of a soul starved of meaning. It's the deep weariness that comes from performing a role that is not you, for goals you do not believe in a system that does not care about your humanity. Recent reports highlight this crisis perfectly. Only about 1/3 of employees globally report feeling they are thriving. A lack of meaning and purpose is a top driver of mental health pressures, especially for younger workers. Your exhaustion is a form of grief. Grief for the life you aren't living, for the parts of yourself you've sacrificed on the altar of professional success. The depression and anxiety reported by so many workers are not disorders in this context. They are a healthy, rational response to a sick environment. They are a cry for help from the deepest part of you. The question is, what do we do when we hear that cry? So, how do we begin to reclaim the parts of ourselves we've lost? If you're expecting a 5-step plan to find the perfect job, you will be disappointed. Jung's answer isn't about changing your job first. It's about an inward journey. His solution is not a quick fix. It is a profound process he called individuation. It is the path to becoming whole. The first and most radical step is to completely reframe your suffering. That burnout, that anxiety, that Sunday night dread, these are not your enemies. They are not problems to be powered through. They are messengers. They are signals from your authentic self, telling you that the way you are living is unsustainable. Your psyche is trying to save you from a life that is slowly killing you. So the work begins not by fighting these symptoms, but by listening to them. Instead of numbing the emptiness with distraction, have the courage to sit with it. Instead of silencing your cynicism, ask it, what truth are you trying to tell me? Instead of cursing your exhaustion, ask, what am I pouring my life force into that isn't nourishing me? Jung had a famous saying for this: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Your burnout is not your fate. It is a symptom of your unconscious life directing you toward a dead end. To make it conscious is to turn and face it. This requires a radical act of self-compassion. It means accepting that your pain is real, valid, and meaningful. It's a signal that a profound change is needed, not in your willpower, but in your direction. Individuation is Jung's term for the lifelong process of becoming the individual you were always meant to be. It is the journey of integrating the disparate parts of your psyche, your conscious ego, your persona, your shadow, into a unified functioning whole. It is the process of becoming truly, authentically, and unapologetically yourself. Crucially, individuation is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming complete. The goal isn't to eliminate the shadow. That's impossible. The goal is to integrate it. It's about finding the courage to own your anger, your ambition, your fear. It's about recognizing that there is often hidden gold in the darkness. Your repressed anger might contain the passion you need to fight for something you believe in. Your hidden vulnerability might be the key to forming genuine connections. Your secret creative impulses, deemed useless by the corporate world, might hold the key to a life of joy. This journey is the absolute antithesis of what modern work demands. The world wants you to fit into a neat box on an organizational chart. Individuation is a call to become a generalist of your own soul. It requires immense courage because it means choosing your own wholeness over the approval of the crowd. It means valuing your inner integrity more than your outer success. This might sound daunting, but the journey begins with simple, practical steps. The journey of individuation can be started today. The practice is often called shadow work, and it's the conscious process of exploring your own inner darkness. It's the work of asking the hard questions and listening honestly to the answers. Let's try a few right now. First, what parts of yourself do you leave at home when you go to work? Make a literal list. Is it your humor, your political convictions, your artistic side, your empathy, your grief? Look at that list. That is the price of admission you pay every day. Second, describe your professional persona in the third person. What is this character like? What do they value? What are they afraid of? Now, describe the person you are when you feel most alive and most yourself. Where are the starkest differences? That gap is the source of your existential fatigue. Third, what did you love to do as a child? Before you were told what was useful? Before the world taught you to build a resume, what brought you unfiltered joy? Drawing, building things, exploring, taking things apart? That childhood love is often a direct line to the authentic self before it was drowned out by the noise of expectation. Fourth, pay attention to your projections. The next time you have a strong, seemingly irrational negative reaction to someone, stop. Ask yourself, what quality in this person is triggering me so intensely? Is it possible that this quality exists in my own shadow, in a form I have refused to acknowledge? This is difficult, humbling work, but it's one of the most powerful ways to reclaim your own disowned parts. Finally, ask yourself this terrifying, liberating question. What would a life aligned with your true self, not just your resume, actually look like? Don't censor the answer. Don't worry about whether it's practical. Just allow yourself to dream. The act of giving that dream space is an act of defiance against the soulless conformity that has held you captive. This journey is not easy. It requires a commitment to a different kind of success, an inner success. The pain you feel in your modern work life is not a sign that you are broken. It is a spiritual call to adventure. It is an invitation from the depths of your own being to stop performing and start living. The goal is not necessarily to find a perfect stress-free job. The goal is to build a self so whole and authentic that you can bring meaning to your work rather than expecting your work to give meaning to you. The goal is to become a person who can either transform their current reality with a newfound integrity or find the courage to leave it behind for a new one, to choose authenticity over applause, to choose wholeness over a hollow success, to choose your own undiscovered self, waiting patiently in the shadows for you to finally come home. If this resonated with you, I want you to do one small act of shadow work right now. Leave a comment below with one word for a quality, positive or negative, that you feel modern work forces you to hide. Let's bring a little bit of that collective shadow into the light together. And if you want to continue exploring these ideas on how to navigate the modern world without losing your soul, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. The journey is long, but you don't have to walk it alone. You might be surprised by what rises to the surface. Maybe it's your anger, the one you've learned to swallow. Maybe it's your longing to be seen, the softness you were told to erase. Or maybe it's a hunger, wild, untamed, for something more than metrics and politeness. Whatever it is, that one word you leave is not just a comment. It's a crack in the mask. It's a signal to yourself. I see the part of me they told me to hide, and I'm no longer ashamed. Shadow work doesn't begin with fixing. It begins with witnessing, with making space for what has been exiled, because the parts you were taught to control might be the very ones that can set you free. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper, not into the world, but into the dream beneath it. We'll explore how your unconscious speaks in symbols, how your persona performs for survival, and how your deeper self waits quietly behind the noise. This isn't about becoming someone better. It's about remembering someone older, someone wiser, who was buried beneath performance and productivity. The world taught you to upgrade, to optimize, to stay efficient. But your soul was never built for efficiency. It was built for meaning. It's not here to compete. It's here to complete something. And every time you listen to that quiet inner voice, the one beneath the role, beneath the image, you take a step closer to home. You may not know what you're returning to yet, but some part of you already remembers, not with your mind, but with something older. The way a tree knows where the sun is, the way a bird knows when it's time to leave. This journey has no map, and no one-size-fits-all destination. But if you follow the thread of what feels true, even when it's quiet, even when it hurts, it will take you exactly where you need to go. Not back to who you were, but forward into who you actually are. This is not the end of the story. It's the threshold. The veil is thin, the unconscious is listening, and the life you are meant to live is still waiting for you to show up. So, take a breath. Leave yo